You don't belong here. Claire Whitmore's voice sliced through the air, sharp and venomous. She stumbled into the suite, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor as she glared at Nia. What are you even doing in my room? Nia froze momentarily but kept her hands steady, adjusting a towel on the neatly made bed. Her pulse quickened, though she refused to let it show. I'm tidying up, ma'am, she replied calmly, her tone measured, despite the tension crackling between them. Claire scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. Tidying up? This place looks like a disaster zone, and people like you, she paused, sneering, shouldn't be trusted with something so important. The words stung, but Nia bit back any retort. Instead, she reached subtly for her phone, activating the recording app she always carried during inspections. Every syllable Claire spat would serve a purpose later. I assure you, Nia said evenly, your suite will meet every expectation before I leave. Oh, spare me the excuses, Claire snapped, her voice rising. Just get out of here and tell whoever's in charge that if this doesn't improve, I'll make sure they regret it. As Claire stormed off, slamming the door behind her, Nia exhaled slowly. The encounter left her shaken but also resolute. This wasn't just about one entitled guest. It was about exposing a larger issue festering within her own company. Little did Claire know, she just ignited a battle she couldn't win. Nia slid her phone back into her pocket, replaying Claire's tirade in her mind. It wasn't the first time she'd gone undercover to assess her hotels, but tonight felt different. Personal. For weeks, anonymous complaints had trickled in, employees whispering about unfair treatment, guests grumbling about inconsistent service. At first, Nia dismissed them as isolated incidents, but the patterns were too clear to ignore. Racism wasn't just an accusation. It was a reality simmering beneath the polished surface of her luxury brand. Her decision to pose as a housekeeper hadn't been easy. As CEO, stepping into such a role meant swallowing her pride and facing scrutiny head-on. But Nia believed leadership required sacrifice. If she wanted real change, she needed first-hand evidence, not hearsay or second-hand reports. Claire's behavior confirmed what Nia had suspected. Privilege often shielded cruelty, yet there was more to uncover. Why did management tolerate guests like Claire? Was it fear, complicity, or something deeper? As Nia finished straightening the suite, her thoughts drifted to the staff she'd met so far, their weary smiles, their cautious glances. They deserved better. All of them did. And she intended to give it to them. But first, she needed allies and answers. Nia's hands trembled slightly as she folded the last towel, Claire's insults echoing in her ears. People like you. The phrase lingered like a bitter taste, igniting memories of past slights, comments whispered behind closed doors, subtle dismissals at industry events. Each word carried weight, each implication cutting deeper than the last, yet anger wouldn't solve anything. Nia clenched her fists briefly before releasing them, forcing herself to focus. Claire's tirade wasn't just personal. It was evidence. Proof of the systemic bias she'd come to expose. She replayed the recording mentally, analyzing every nuance. Claire's entitlement, her disdain, her complete disregard for anyone she deemed beneath her. These weren't mere outbursts. They were symptoms of a much larger problem. Nia's resolve hardened. She couldn't afford to let emotions cloud her judgment, not when so much was at stake. For now, silence was her weapon, patience, her armor. Still, the weight of the moment pressed heavily on her chest. How many others had endured similar abuse? How many had swallowed their pride, fearing retaliation or dismissal? Nia knew the answer. Too many. As she pushed the cleaning cart toward the door, her thoughts turned to action. Recording Claire was only the beginning. She needed proof of systemic racism, not just individual acts of prejudice. And she suspected the staff held the key, if only they'd trust her enough to speak out. Outside the suite, Nia paused by the linen closet, pretending to organize supplies while fragments of conversation drifted toward her. Two other maids stood nearby, their voices hushed but tinged with frustration. She does this every time, one muttered. Acts like we're invisible unless she's yelling at us. The other nodded grimly. Management never says a word. They're too scared of losing her money. Nia's stomach churned. So it wasn't just random cruelty. It was systemic. Claire's behavior wasn't an anomaly. It was tolerated, even encouraged, because of her status. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. How many others had suffered in silence? How many careers had been stifled because of fear? She stepped forward instinctively, then hesitated. Interrupting might spook them, and she needed their trust if she hoped to dig deeper. Instead, she cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me," she began, keeping her tone gentle. "Did you say Claire Whitmore?" Both women turned sharply, startled. One glanced nervously at the other before responding. "Yeah, why?" Nia offered a small smile, careful not to seem intrusive. "No reason, just curious. I've heard rumors about her, that's all." The older maid sighed heavily, shaking her head. "Rumors don't do justice to what she's really like. Trust me, you don't want to cross her." But Nia already had, and she wasn't backing down anytime soon. Later that evening, Nia lingered in the break room, sipping lukewarm coffee while eavesdropping on snippets of conversation. Most employees avoided discussing Claire directly, but those who did spoke in hushed tones, glancing around nervously as though afraid of being overheard. "She's got the managers wrapped around her finger," someone whispered. "They won't do anything to upset her," another chimed in, bitterness lacing their words. "And why would they? She's one of the biggest investors in the chain. They care more about her money than our dignity." "Investor?" Nia's heart sank. That explained everything. The preferential treatment, the unchecked abuse. Claire wasn't just a difficult guest. She was a power player pulling strings behind the scenes. The revelation made Nia's blood boil, but it also clarified her next move. She couldn't tackle this alone. Picking up her phone, she scrolled through recent emails until she found Ethan Park's name. Ethan was a young intern in the corporate office, bright-eyed and eager to prove himself. More importantly, he had access to internal communications. If anyone could help her piece together the bigger picture, it was him. "Ethan," she typed quickly, "can we meet tomorrow? There's something urgent I need your help with." Within minutes, his reply popped up. "Course, what's going on?" Nia hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Let's talk in person. It's complicated." Complicated didn't begin to cover it. But as Nia set her phone aside, she felt a flicker of hope. With allies like Ethan, and perhaps others, willing to speak out, she might finally expose the rot festering within her company. All she needed was proof. And proof, she suspected, was closer than she thought. Nia watched silently as the supervisor, a middle-aged white man named Greg, cornered Tasha Monroe in the hallway. His tone was sharp, accusatory. "How hard is it to fold towels properly?" he snapped, holding up a slightly crooked hand towel like it was evidence of a crime. Tasha nodded meekly, avoiding eye contact. "I'll fix it right away," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Moments later, Nia noticed another staff member, a young white woman, walk past with an unmade cart, missing half its toiletries entirely. When Greg spotted her, his demeanor softened. "Hey, don't forget those extras next time," he said casually, almost friendly. No reprimand, no raised voice. Nia clenched her jaw but kept her expression neutral. These moments weren't isolated incidents. They were patterns. Patterns that revealed how deeply rooted bias had become within the company. She jotted down notes discreetly, documenting every interaction. As she continued observing, frustration simmered beneath her calm exterior. The disparity wasn't just unfair, it was demoralizing. And if this behavior persisted unchecked, it would destroy morale and trust among employees. But exposing it wouldn't be easy. For now, all she could do was gather more evidence and prepare for what came next. Each documented injustice fueled her resolve. This wasn't just about one supervisor. It was about dismantling a culture that allowed such inequities to thrive. During a rare lull in the morning rush, Nia found herself sharing a quiet moment with Tasha Monroe in the break room. The older woman sighed heavily, stirring sugar into her coffee without looking up. You know, Tasha began hesitantly, I've been here almost 10 years, longer than most of the supervisors. But every time there's an opening for promotion, they pass me over. Her voice cracked slightly, betraying years of bottled-up resentment. They say I'm not qualified enough. Meanwhile, new hires with less experience get promoted faster. Nia listened intently, her heart aching at the pain in Tasha's words. That must feel infuriating, she said softly, choosing her words carefully. Tasha laughed bitterly. Infuriating doesn't even cover it. Do you know what it's like to pour your soul into something only to have people act like you're invisible? Like nothing you do matters? She recounted a memory from years ago when she'd trained a junior employee who was later promoted above her. He didn't know the first thing about managing schedules or handling complaints, but apparently, having the right face makes all the difference. Nia felt anger bubbling inside her, not just for Tasha, but for everyone else enduring similar treatment. It wasn't just incompetence on the part of management. It was deliberate exclusion. Systemic racism cloaked professionalism, see. I hear you, Nia said firmly, meeting Tasha's gaze. And I promise things are going to change. Though Nia couldn't reveal her true identity yet, her determination burned brighter than ever. Tasha deserved justice, and so did countless others like her. Back in the storage closet turned makeshift workspace, Nia sifted through files Ethan had covertly retrieved from corporate headquarters. Each document painted a clearer picture of Claire Whitmore's influence and corruption. Did you know she owns nearly 20% of the company? Ethan whispered, pointing to a financial report. Her family invested decades ago. She practically runs the place behind the scenes. Nia's stomach churned. That explained why no one dared challenge Claire's behavior. She wasn't just a wealthy guest throwing tantrums. She was a major stakeholder whose approval meant survival for executives too afraid to stand up to her. But the deeper Nia dug, the darker the revelations became. Emails revealed Claire actively blocking diversity initiatives, claiming they were too risky for the brand image. One particularly damning message read, "We can't afford to alienate our core clientele by promoting minorities into leadership roles." Nia's hands trembled as she read the line over and over. This wasn't negligence, it was calculated oppression. Claire wasn't merely complicit, she was orchestrating it. What happens if we expose this? Ethan asked nervously, breaking the silence. Nia exhaled slowly, steeling herself. If we play our cards right, we take her down. But exposing her means taking on the entire system she represents. The stakes were higher than ever. But quitting wasn't an option, not anymore. Ethan lingered after their impromptu meeting, clearly hesitant to leave. Finally, he spoke. Ms. Johnson, ma'am, I want to help. Nia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Help how? I've seen how much you care about this place, Ethan admitted, fidgeting with his notebook. Most execs wouldn't bother going undercover or listening to employees. You're different, and frankly, I think you're the only one who can fix this mess. His sincerity struck a chord. Here was someone willing to risk everything alongside her, someone who believed in the cause as much as she did. All right, Nia said finally, extending her hand. Let's work together. But understand this, if we're caught, neither of us gets out unscathed. Ethan nodded solemnly. Understood. Together they dove deeper into the data Ethan had gathered. Among the emails was undeniable proof of Claire's interference in internal policies, along with incriminating remarks about minority employees. One email chain even outlined plans to suppress racial bias complaints by labeling them as unfounded grievances. This is gold, Nia muttered under her breath. With this kind of evidence, they could ignite change, or spark a war. Either way, the fight was far from over. Claire stormed into the suite, her designer dress bunched in one hand. You, she barked, pointing at Nia. Fix this. Now. Nia looked up calmly, though her pulse quickened. Excuse me? There's a stain on my dress, Claire spat, thrusting the fabric toward her. Clean it, that's what you're paid for, isn't it? No, Nia replied evenly, crossing her arms. I'm paid to ensure guest satisfaction, not cater to unreasonable demands. Claire's face twisted in outrage. Unreasonable, how dare you speak to me like that? Do you have any idea who I am? Yes, Nia shot back, her voice steady despite the tension crackling between them. And I assure you I'm not your servant. Before Claire could respond, security arrived, summoned no doubt by her furious calls. Officer Greg Harris stepped forward, his eyes narrowing suspiciously. Is there a problem here, ma'am? She insulted me, Claire shrieked, gesturing wildly. Remove her immediately. Greg glanced at Nia, then back at Claire. Without hesitation, he reached for his handcuffs. Put your hands behind your back, Greg ordered gruffly, gripping Nia's arm tightly. On what grounds? Nia demanded, struggling to keep her composure. I haven't done anything wrong. Greg ignored her protests, snapping the cuffs into place. Ma'am says otherwise. That's good enough for me. Nia bit back a retort, fury burning in her chest. This wasn't justice. It was prejudice masquerading as authority. Greg hadn't asked questions or sought clarification. He'd assumed guilt based solely on Claire's word. As he led her away, Nia caught glimpses of horrified expressions from nearby staff members. Some looked away, unwilling to meet her gaze. Others whispered anxiously, unsure whether to intervene. Greg's actions weren't just personal. They reflected a broader issue. Officers like him perpetuated cycles of mistrust and fear, reinforcing systemic biases rather than challenging them. And now, Nia was caught in the crossfire. For a brief moment, she considered revealing her true identity, but doing so would undermine everything she'd worked for. Instead, she resolved to endure this indignity, for the sake of proving a larger point. Justice might be delayed, but it wouldn't be denied. By the time Marcus Reed arrived at the detention room, Nia's patience was wearing thin. He entered cautiously, closing the door behind him before speaking. Nia, I heard what happened, he began, his tone apologetic but tinged with unease. Look, I know this situation seems bad, but we can't afford to escalate it further. Escalate? It? Nia repeated incredulously. Marcus, I was handcuffed without cause because of a racist guest's lies. What exactly should I de-escalate? Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. Claire's a major investor. If we push back against her, we risk losing millions, not to mention damaging the hotel's reputation. So you knew, Nia said flatly, her voice cutting like ice. You knew about her behavior and chose to ignore it. Marcus winced, but didn't deny it. Yes, I knew, but what was I supposed to do? Confront her? Risk everything we've built? Everything you've built? Nia countered sharply. Or everything we've sacrificed for? Her words hung heavy in the air, punctuating the betrayal. Marcus had always been pragmatic, but this was beyond compromise. It was cowardice. I'm sorry, he said quietly, though his apology rang hollow. Sometimes playing politics is the only way to survive. Nia stared at him, disappointment etched across her face. Trust, once broken, couldn't easily be repaired. And Marcus's failure to act wasn't just a personal slight. It was emblematic of the very system she sought to dismantle. When he left, she sat alone in silence, wrestling with anger and resolve. This fight wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone Claire had wronged. Alone in the sterile confines of the detention room, Nia let her thoughts drift back to where it all began. Growing up poor in a neighborhood riddled with inequality, she'd learned early that success required resilience. Every setback had been a lesson, every triumph a testament to perseverance. She thought of her mother scrubbing floors for minimum wage while dreaming of a better life for her children, of nights spent studying by candlelight when the electricity bill went unpaid, of the countless doors slammed in her face simply because of her race. And yet here she was, CEO of a multi-million-dollar empire, a symbol of possibility. Or so she'd thought. Claire's tirades, Greg's assumptions, Marcus's betrayal. They weren't isolated incidents. They were reflections of a society that still viewed black excellence as a threat. But Nia refused to let fear dictate her path. Fear had never stopped her before, and it wouldn't now. She straightened her posture, ignoring the discomfort of the handcuffs biting into her wrists. This wasn't just about her pride. It was about paving the way for others. For Tasha. For Ethan. For every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong. When the door finally opened, Nia emerged with renewed purpose. The battle ahead would be brutal, but surrender wasn't an option. Change never came without sacrifice. Ethan paced nervously outside the cafe where journalist Maya Torres waited. He slid the USB drive across the table, his hands trembling slightly. "This has everything," he said quickly. "Emails, financial records, internal memos, proof of Claire Whitmore's corruption." Maya raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "And you're sure about this? Leaking confidential information could cost you your job." "I don't care," Ethan replied firmly. "People deserve to know the truth." Maya inserted the drive into her laptop, scrolling through the documents with growing outrage. The evidence was damning. Emails detailing discriminatory practices, blocked promotions, suppressed complaints. By the time she finished, her expression was grim. "This is huge," she murmured, leaning back in her chair. "If we publish this, it'll blow up. Are you ready for the fallout?" Ethan hesitated briefly before nodding. "It's worth it." As Maya began drafting her article, the implications of their actions rippled outward. The scandal promised to rock not just the hotel chain, but the entire hospitality industry. Justice, long overdue, was finally within reach. The grand ballroom buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses as Claire Whitmore held court at the center of it all. Her voice carried over the hum of conversation, dripping with arrogance. "This hotel chain wouldn't be where it is today without my family's vision and money," she declared, raising her champagne flute to scattered applause. Nia stood at the edge of the room, her presence commanding yet understated in a sleek black gown that contrasted sharply with Claire's garish excess. As whispers rippled through the crowd upon her arrival, Nia stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a war drum. "Actually, Ms. Whitmore," Nia began, her voice cutting through the air like steel, "there's something you should know." She pressed play on her phone, amplifying the recording of Claire's earlier tirade for everyone to hear. The venomous words echoed loudly. "People like you shouldn't work here," silencing the room instantly. Claire froze mid-sip, her face pale beneath layers of makeup. Gasps rippled through the audience as they turned from Claire to Nia, realization dawning. Nia's tone remained calm but unyielding. "For weeks I've gone undercover to uncover the truth about this company, and your role in perpetuating its darkest secrets." The weight of her revelation hung heavy in the air. Claire stammered, attempting to laugh it off. This is ridiculous. Clearly there's been some misunderstanding, but Nia wasn't finished. "No misunderstandings, Ms. Whitmore. Only undeniable proof of who you truly are." With those words, she signaled to Ethan, who nodded toward Maya Torres standing nearby, camera already rolling. The battle had only just begun, but the tide was turning. Before Claire could recover, Maya Torres stepped into view, her tablet broadcasting live footage of an incident earlier that day. On screen, Claire berated a young black employee in front of guests, her voice shrill and condescending. "You call this service? Pathetic," she spat, shoving a menu into the trembling worker's hands. The video played in excruciating detail, capturing not just Claire's cruelty, but the humiliation etched across the employee's face. Murmurs erupted throughout the ballroom, growing louder as the clip ended. Some guests looked away in discomfort. Others stared openly at Claire, their expressions ranging from shock to disgust. Claire's composure shattered completely. "That's enough," she shrieked, lunging toward Maya as if to stop the broadcast. Security guards moved swiftly to restrain her, but the damage was done. The evidence spoke for itself, and the crowd knew it. Nia watched silently, her arms crossed, as Claire frantically tried to defend herself. "It's taken out of context. I was upset. Isn't anyone allowed to express frustration anymore? Her protests fell flat, drowned out by rising voices demanding accountability. For the first time, Claire seemed small, vulnerable, and Nia felt no pity. This was justice unfolding in real time, exposing the ugliness Claire had hidden behind wealth and privilege. But the worst was yet to come. Ethan stepped forward confidently, clutching a folder filled with damning documents. He handed them to Nia, who scanned the pages quickly before addressing the stunned crowd once more. "There's more," Nia announced, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around her. "Claire hasn't just abused employees, she's stolen from this company. These financial records prove she embezzled millions under the guise of investments. Funds meant to support diversity initiatives were funneled directly into offshore accounts." Claire's eyes widened in panic as murmurs turned to outright outrage. Guests whispered furiously among themselves, while others pulled out their phones to document the scandal unfolding before them. "You can't do this," Claire screamed, pointing an accusatory finger at Nia. "Do you have any idea what you're destroying?" "What am I destroying?" Nia shot back, her voice rising slightly for the first time. "No, Ms. Whitmore. What you've destroyed, careers, dignity, trust, is far worse. And now the world will see exactly who you are." As reporters rushed to capture every word, Claire collapsed onto a nearby chair, her bravado crumbling entirely. It was clear. She had nowhere left to run. Tears streamed down Claire's face as reality crashed down around her. Gone was the entitled socialite, who strutted through life unchecked. In her place sat a broken woman pleading desperately for mercy. "Please, Nia," Claire begged, her voice trembling. "I'll resign as an investor. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't ruin me publicly." Nia studied her carefully, her expression unreadable. For a moment, silence reigned, save for Claire's sobs echoing through the ballroom. Then Nia spoke, her voice firm and resolute. "This isn't about revenge, Ms. Whitmore. It's about accountability. For every employee you've demeaned, every policy you've sabotaged, every lie you've told." Claire flinched as though struck, her pleas dissolving into choked gasps. Around them, the crowd watched intently, captivated by the spectacle of power stripped bare. Even those who might have once admired Claire now regarded her with disdain, or worse, indifference. When Nia finally turned away, leaving Claire to her fate, the message was clear. Actions had consequences. No amount of wealth or influence could shield someone from the truth, not when the world was watching. And Nia intended to make sure the world remembered. With Claire's reputation in tatters, Nia took the stage one final time, her poise unwavering. Tonight marks the beginning of a new chapter, not just for this hotel chain, but for everyone who has ever been told they don't belong, she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. She outlined sweeping reforms designed to dismantle systemic racism within the company. Mandatory anti-racism training for all staff, promotions based solely on merit, with special attention given to overlooked minority employees. Zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior, whether from guests or colleagues. "For too long, fear has silenced us," Nia continued, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. "But silence only empowers those who seek to divide us. Together, we can build a future rooted in equality and respect, a future where no one feels invisible." Applause erupted, thunderous and heartfelt, as guests rose to their feet. Among them were Tasha, Ethan, and countless others whose lives Nia's fight would transform. For the first time in years, hope filled the room, a tangible force driving change forward. As the gala drew to a close, Nia stood tall, knowing the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But tonight, justice had prevailed, and that was just the beginning. The announcement came during the morning staff meeting, and Tasha Monroe could hardly believe her ears. "Effective immediately," Nia began, her voice warm with pride. "Tasha Monroe will assume the role of head of housekeeping." A wave of applause erupted from the assembled team, but Tasha stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes. For years, She doubted herself, questioned whether her hard work would ever be recognized. Now, standing before her colleagues as their new leader, she felt a surge of validation unlike anything she'd experienced before. "Thank you, Nia," Tasha said, her voice trembling with emotion as she stepped forward to shake hands. "You didn't just give me this position, you gave me hope. You showed me that no matter how much they try to hold us back, we can rise." Nia smiled softly, placing a reassuring hand on Tasha's shoulder. "This promotion isn't about Bimu, it's about you. Your dedication, your resilience, you've earned every bit of it." As the room filled with cheers and congratulations, Nia watched proudly. Tasha's journey symbolized more than personal success. It represented a shift within the company, a move toward recognizing talent and potential regardless of race or background. This was progress in action, proof that change was possible when people dared to challenge the status quo. For Tasha, the moment marked not just a career milestone, but a renewed sense of purpose. She vowed to pay it forward, ensuring others like her wouldn't have to wait decades for their turn. Days after the gala, Marcus approached Nia hesitantly, his usual confidence replaced by visible unease. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly, avoiding her gaze. Nia nodded, gesturing for him to sit. "I owe you an apology," Marcus began, his voice thick with regret. "I let fear dictate my actions, or rather my inaction. I knew what Claire was doing, and I stayed silent because I thought protecting the company meant protecting her. But I see now, I was wrong." He paused, clasping his hands tightly. "Together, you've always fought for what's right, even when it wasn't easy. And I failed you, and everyone else, by not standing beside you." Nia studied him carefully, weighing his words. Part of her wanted to dismiss him entirely, to let anger dictate her response. But another part remembered Marcus's contributions. Over the years, the late nights, the sacrifices he'd made for the company. People weren't perfect. Growth required forgiveness as much as accountability. "I appreciate your honesty," Nia said finally, her tone measured. "But trust isn't something I can just hand back. It has to be earned, and that starts with action, not words." Marcus nodded earnestly. "I understand. Whatever you need from me, I'll do it. I want to help rebuild this company into something better for everyone." Though skepticism lingered, Nia extended a tentative olive branch. "Then prove it," she said firmly. "Show me and everyone else that you're committed to real change." As Marcus left, Nia exhaled slowly, conflicted but resolute. Redemption wasn't guaranteed, but giving someone the chance to grow was worth the risk. With Claire's embezzled funds legally recovered, Nia turned her attention to creating lasting impact beyond the hotel chain. She founded the Nia Johnson Foundation, dedicated to empowering marginalized communities within the hospitality industry. Its mission was simple yet ambitious: dismantle systemic barriers and create opportunities for those who had long been overlooked. The foundation launched with 3 core initiatives: scholarships for minority students pursuing careers in hospitality, mentorship programs pairing young professionals with seasoned leaders, and workshops addressing racial bias and fostering inclusivity. Each program aimed to break cycles of exclusion and equip individuals with tools to succeed. At the inaugural event, Nia addressed a packed auditorium of aspiring professionals, educators, and advocates. "This foundation isn't about me," she emphasized, her voice steady yet impassioned. "It's about all of you, the dreamers, the fighters, the changemakers. Together, we're building a future where everyone has a seat at the table." Attendees listened intently. Many moved to tears as Nia recounted stories of employees like Tasha, whose lives had been transformed by opportunity. When she unveiled plans for partnerships with universities and industry leaders, the room erupted in applause. Outside, media coverage amplified the foundation's launch, sparking conversations about diversity and equity across sectors. Social media buzzed with hashtags like inclusive hospitality and change starts with us, amplifying Nia's message globally. For Nia, the foundation represented more than charity. It was a legacy, a way to ensure that the battles fought inside, her hotels inspired broader societal shifts. As she stepped off stage, surrounded by supporters eager to join the cause, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This was only the beginning. Within months, Nia's reforms reshaped the hotel chain into a beacon of inclusivity and fairness. Awards poured in, from industry accolades celebrating innovative leadership to global recognition for implementing anti-racism policies. Headlines praised the company as a model for corporate responsibility, inspiring competitors to adopt similar practices. Employees spoke openly about the culture shift, sharing stories of newfound respect and support. "Before I felt invisible," one staff member told a reporter. "Now I feel valued, not just as an employee but as a person." Guests echoed these sentiments, praising the chain's commitment to equality without compromising luxury. Testimonials highlighted interactions with diverse teams who radiated professionalism and pride. Even former skeptics admitted the changes hadn't just improved morale, they'd elevated service standards across the board. Internally, Nia celebrated milestones large and small. Promotions once blocked were now celebrated. Training sessions fostered open dialogue, challenging biases and strengthening unity. Every success reinforced her belief that courage coupled with determination could dismantle even the most entrenched systems. As the company expanded internationally, its reputation for inclusivity became its hallmark. Investors clamored to partner with a brand synonymous with progress, proving that ethics and profitability weren't mutually exclusive. Under Nia's leadership, the hotel chain wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. And yet, Nia knew true victory wasn't measured in headlines or profits. It was reflected in the faces of those who finally felt seen. Late one evening, Nia sat alone in her office, gazing out at the city skyline bathed in soft moonlight. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of triumphs and challenges, each moment etched deeply into her memory. Yet, amidst the chaos, clarity emerged. She thought of Tasha's tearful gratitude, Marcus's earnest apology, and Ethan's unwavering bravery. She recalled Claire's collapse under the weight of her own cruelty, and the collective gasp of a crowd witnessing truth confront power. These moments weren't hers alone. They belonged to everyone who had dared to stand up, speak out, and demand better. Her mind drifted to her mother, scrubbing floors for pennies while dreaming of a brighter tomorrow. To Tasha, leading her team with quiet strength. To strangers around the world watching videos of the gala, inspired to fight injustices in their lives. Change started small, with individual acts of courage, but rippled outward, transforming entire communities. Nia leaned back in her chair, penning thoughts that would become her closing address to employees and allies alike. "Change doesn't begin with grand gestures," she wrote. "It begins with ordinary people refusing to accept inequality as normal. It begins when we stand up, not just for ourselves, but for each other." When she delivered those words, days later they resonated universally. Audiences nodded in agreement, some wiping away tears, others cheering loudly. Nia's journey had come full circle, not as a CEO seeking revenge, but as a leader igniting a movement. As she walked away from the podium, applause echoing behind her, Nia knew the work wasn't finished. But for the first time, she believed wholeheartedly that justice wasn't just a dream, it was a destiny waiting to be claimed.